I'm gonna do Darren's dance crews because you were giving, I guess you can call them workshops, right, around the
Yeah.
nation, and they were
Oh
very
yeah.
successful. You're like, this is something that we should bring to DVD. Well, you
Yep.
pitched it, and people weren't feeling it, right, or it just wasn't all the way there. So at a point, you had to bet on yourself. And
Yep.
so, why don't you talk about what that felt like there, and maybe if there's other moments where you feel like you've had to bet on yourself and it's paid off.
Yeah. I mean, I was, to be very honest, I've always been underestimated, and I'm cool with it because it makes me show up and show out. I'm a fighter for real. And when somebody says I can't do something or I wouldn't be able to do it, I show them that I can. And I believe in Darrin. So if you don't, that's your issue. When I pitched Darrin's Dance Grooves, everyone said no. Sony said no. Um, um, uh, Jive said no. Everybody, I mean, I could, for a whole year, people were like, no, 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 no. Other people was like, nobody ever did that. And I was like, exactly. I remember when Billy Blanks was out, and I was like, if they could do that with boxing and karate, why can't you do it with dance? And nobody had done it. And so I decided to be the person to do it. And when I got told no for about a year, I went and shot it myself. And then after I shot it, I went to an attorney that I was working with that worked with Britney Spears. And he saw it and he goes, this is a great idea. And so he said, give me a couple of weeks. And then he came back and said, I want to introduce you to somebody. So it was a company that he introduced me to that was involved in the music industry, so to speak. And they even said no because they had never done anything like that in that space. And so, you know, I said, listen, don't say no so fast because I hadn't heard no for a year. And I, you know, hearing no meant I'm closer to my yes. And so I had a Darren's Dance Grooves workshop where it was like 1,000 people, young girls and young boys at the Darren's Dance Grooves workshop. And I said, give me a week. And so I used to videotape all of the workshops, and I came back with the video camera. I had incorporated in 1997, way before the DVD ever came out. And
Hmm.
so I went to them and I said, check this out. And they said, wow, how many people are there? Actually, it was about 1,100. So they were like, wow, how much does it cost? And I said it was $150 a head. And they said, well, you know, who owns this? And I said, it's called Darren's Dance Grooves Dance Convention. They said, yeah, but who owns it? And I said, it's called Darren's Dance Grooves. And they were like, you own this? And I said, yeah. So they started calculating and they figured it out. Once I told
Hmm.
them how much I did it around the country and how many I did a year, they said, absolutely. Because it was already an audience that was built in with the possibility of this being a hit DVD. And it was. By Christmas that following year, it was the largest selling Christmas item in America.